Over the weekend, an enormous trove of documents were released that has some people in the Trump inner circle, as well as elites all over the world, very worried. Now, according to the Daily Beast, more than 13 million leaked documents, called the Paradise Papers, implicate top officials and associates of President Trump, as well as foreign politicians, and even the Queen of England, of shady business relationships tied to different offshore financial accounts. So this is very important. Now, a significant number of these leaked documents, the Daily Beast explains, came from a law firm based in Bermuda called Appleby, which helps its clients set up an offshore financial accounts with the goal of avoiding taxes on certain assets. Well, already you're off to a great start. You're a company that's like, hey, get this, rich and powerful people. This is how you avoid taxes. Wonderful. Already, this is a lovely story. But it gets worse. Now, Appleby has maintained, of course, that there is no evidence of any wrongdoing in what they're doing, either on part of ourselves or our clients. But as you can see, it's pretty obvious why they would get that impression that they did something wrong. Now, at least in 2 cases, the documents highlight top administration's officials' undisclosed connections to Russia and Russian-linked interests. Wonderful. Now, the documents show that many of the wealthy individuals Trump brought into his administration have worked to legally store their money in offshore havens where they would be free from taxes in the United States. So right now, what we have is we have over $2 trillion worth of money stored in assets overseas. Now, that's money that these people, these multinational corporations and very, very wealthy individuals have kept from taxes. So all this money goes there, it sits. It does not go back into the economy. Gee, I wonder if that has anything to do with the widening inequality problem in America. I couldn't tell. Now, what's interesting about this is you guys may or may not know when the wealthy don't pay taxes, guess who makes up the difference? It's us. It's us who actually do pay taxes. Through either, of course, they make this up through either higher taxation on you or rollbacks in vital services and tax breaks for the middle class. Or, if barring either of those things, the gigantic future debt that your kids will end up inheriting. Again, these tax cuts for rich people and rich people holding money overseas that does not get taxed, that does not go into our revenue. That gets kept from going back into the treasury, which means debts, deficits. Not good. Now, these companies and billionaires are essentially, through their efforts of evading taxes, are taking money out of your pocket and putting it into their bank accounts. So that's one of the problems with storing money overseas in these so-called tax havens. Now, the other problem, of course, relates to corruption. And speaking of corruption, here comes one of the ties with Trump's staff. Among the Trump administration's officials implicated in the leaks is Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross, who, according to the documents, concealed his ties with to a Russian energy company that is partly owned by Russian President Vladimir Putin's judo partner. That's an interesting connection. Gennady Timchenko and Putin's son-in-law, Kirill Shamalov. The judo partner, okay, whatever. But the son-in-law, well, there's an interesting familial connection. Now, through offshore investments, Ross held a stake in what's called Navigator Holdings. Now, Navigator Holdings had a close relationship with a Russian firm. Now, Ross did not disclose that connection through his confirmation or during his confirmation hearing process on Capitol Hill. So, oops. So here we have another person in the Trump circle that lied during their confirmation hearing about any possible foreign business ties. There seems to be a bit of a pattern here on that one. More on Mr. Ross. In 2014, he poured hundreds of millions of dollars into the Bank of Cyprus, an institution regarded by financial watchdogs as a haven for Russian money laundering. Ross's fellow investors included a pair of oligarchs, including Dmitry Rybolovlev, the man who bought a Trump property in Palm Beach for $95 million. Now, what's interesting about that transaction, that has some watchdogs going, hey, wait a minute, there's something weird about this, is that the property itself was valued at $60 million. He paid $95 million. Isn't that weird? Who overpays by $35 million for a property? Again, super weird, super shady. It seems like it would be a case of money laundering. Now, Ross became a vice chair of that same bank, along with a reported former KGB officer. Now, this is former Deutsche Bank executive Joseph Ackerman was installed as a chairman of that company. Now, Deutsche Bank, by the way, is one of Trump's biggest creditors. Now, they paid hundreds of millions of dollars to settle disputes that it shipped $10 billion or more to Russia in suspect loans. So Deutsche Bank, of course, has been doing a lot of shady things, again, including alleged money laundering. So, dirty money there, okay? But, of course, that is just the tip. Now, the same documents are also looking at Jared Kushner. Now, back in 2014, Kushner co-founded a startup company called Cadre, in which a Russian tech leader, Yuri Milner, invested nearly $1 million. It's about $850,000 of investment. Now, look, that in itself, that's not a problem. Yeah, Russian billionaires, he can come over and be like, I would like to invest in your company. Okay, hey, that's fine. There's nothing illegal about investment into a company. Now, for example, Milner had invested in other giant tech companies without a problem, without any issues. In fact, they even owned at some point a lot of shares in both Facebook and Twitter. Does that mean that Facebook and Twitter is now suddenly Russian and working on behalf of the Russian government? No, that's preposterous. But here's where it gets weird. This guy, again, not a controversial figure normally. However, according to the documents, the investing firm of Gazprom, the investing arm of Gazprom, the state-backed energy company, had financed a share of Facebook worth of up to $1 billion. That same bank, a Kremlin-owned bank, invested $191 million into a Milner firm, and some of that money was then put into Twitter. Back in July, Kushner told the Senate Intelligence Committee in a closed-door meeting that he had never relied on Russian funds to finance his business activities in the private sector. Kushner, who still has a stake in Cadre, did not previously disclose the firm's other business ties. So that's very interesting. So, again, this is somebody saying, oh, no, I don't have any ties with Russian money at all. Look, if you had just come out with it, well, then that'd be different. It's like, oh, okay, so you do have some ties. That's fine. Are they influencing your decisions? Are they influencing the decisions of this administration? That's what we would like to know. Now, if you're like, no, none of that money has influenced me whatsoever, that would be a laughable position to take. As we know, and as the same kind of criticism I've lobbied at Hillary Clinton and the Democrats for taking, again, among Russian money, Saudi Arabian money, is that if you take money and you have financial ties with certain countries and certain foreign nationals or certain billionaires, you're more likely to do the bidding of said billionaires, or at least you're willing to be more sympathetic to the desires and the wishes of those people and those institutions. That's the problem here. Now, Kushner tried to avoid that by saying, oh, me? No, I don't have any connections whatsoever. What are you talking about? Now these documents come out. You actually do have financial connections. And now the question is, well, did those financial connections have anything to do with your decision making? And which is an obvious question to ask, because we know that money corrupts. And that people who are given millions and millions of dollars in loans, or people who have connections, business connections, will obviously want that business to do well and might use their position of authority to ensure special deals or breaks for said companies. It's human nature. So there's the issue here. Now, again, Kushner and Ross having some in these documents are now shown as having some loose financial connections with the Russian government and some of these billionaires. But they're not the only people that show up in the papers. You also have Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, and Gary Cohn, that are all mentioned in the documents as directing subsidiaries overseas in order to hide income from U.S. taxation. So here we go. We've got a lot of people in the cabinet itself who are like, yeah, we're going to set up a foreign subsidiary, we can get away with it, and we'll hide our money from taxes. That's apparently because that's what all these smart businessmen are actually doing. They're starving the U.S. government of much needed revenue and hiding their money. Now, the documents also point to some lower level appointees and their connections. Now, in some cases, their offshore interests are directly related to industries that they are tasked with regulating themselves. In fact, there is Randy Quarles, who was confirmed last month to be vice chairman for supervision at the Federal Reserve. He has been found to have financial connections to a bank based in Bermuda that is being probed by U.S. officials under the suspicion of tax evasion. Now, of course, a Federal Reserve spokesman had told The Guardian that, oh, don't worry about it, Quarles divested from the bank when he assumed his position. Well, we'll find out one way or another if that's true. But basically, here's what we have. We have a gigantic trove of documents that is akin to the last year's Panama Papers. Now, it showed how these offshore havens conduct shady activities on behalf of people who are rich and powerful. Again, tax evasion, possible money laundering, all that stuff. All sorts of things that normal people like us, we don't get to take advantage of. I can't set up a subsidiary and hide my money from taxes. No. This is a racket set up by the rich and powerful to, again, work for their own financial interests at the expense of their home country. I think George Carlin said it best. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. Now, the obvious criticism here that I'm sure you guys saw a mile away is, what about the swamp? Look, I thought that Donald Trump was going to drain the swamp. This seems pretty swampy to me. I don't know about you. Again, anybody who still believes that is not paying attention, or they're lying to themselves. This is the swamp. Offshoring money, shady deals, avoiding taxes. The swamp is in the White House. Now, we need to go after these corrupt politicians. But more importantly than just going after the corrupt politicians and calling them out, is to actually working to fix the system that these powerful people have rigged in their favor. We need to go in there and break up their little club, overturn the little apple cart, and make sure that the corruption stops. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.